Okay.
Like I said, I've got issues every day. I've got injuries to my neck, my back, my lower extremities. I'm not feeling good. I need a home health aide. I need monetary relief. It's issues every single day.
Okay. So I'll try calling you back another time?
I don't understand. What are you trying to accomplish exactly?
Well, I believe you reached out to Humana because you needed some case management support. I got the message. I'm reaching out.
So you're the new case manager that they assigned?
Yes.
And what's your name?
Roger.
Roger. Do you have a last name?
Diaz.
Delta India Alpha Zebra?
Yes.
You have a Latin accent similar to people that I know in Miami, Florida. Have you ever lived in Miami?
Yeah, we're in South Florida.
Oh, okay. Yeah, one of the officers, one of the PRI officers, the police responding to the incident officers, Leslie or Diaz, he walked onto the crime scene and immediately walked up to Officer Ronnie Rodriguez from the City of Miami Police Department and said, "So why'd you beat him up?" He was sticking up for me. And Officer Ronnie Rodriguez ended up yelling at him and said, "Man, let's just take this kid somewhere and beat the shit out of him some more." And Leslie Diaz made him drive me to the emergency room in his vehicle while I was in handcuffs, and Leslie Diaz followed behind him in a separate police vehicle. But I still haven't been able to obtain monetary relief from that situation that I'm still injured from. That officer, Ronnie Rodriguez, he put me in a chokehold, and then he purposely twisted my neck to the right, purposely tried to break my neck, and then he picked me up and he body slammed me onto my left side in front of his Sergeant Edwin Gomez from the City of Miami Police Department, badge number 2364. And there was a sergeant who witnessed it. There was a PRI officer who got the officer who attempted to murder me to confess. And I still haven't been able to obtain monetary relief. There's even an internal affairs detective that came to the hospital and took pictures of the injuries that Officer Ronnie Rodriguez caused. He took pictures of some of the injuries. He didn't take pictures of all of them, but he took several pictures of fresh wounds that were caused by Officer Ronnie Rodriguez. And there's an irrefutable amount of clear and convincing evidence proving that Officer Ronnie Rodriguez attempted to murder me and caused injuries to my upper and lower extremities. And like I said, I still have not been able. Like I said, I still have not been able to obtain monetary relief. I'm still injured. I've asked for help several times from several different participating agencies. Everybody from the White House, the Donald J. Trump administration, the current administration, the current President Joseph Robinette Biden administration, the FBI, the CIA, Humana, Special Investigations Unit at Humana, several participating agencies, several entities and municipalities of city and state government, and I still have not been able to obtain monetary relief. I don't know what else to do. I mean, I've had to complain to my family. My family has had to step in. They've had to spend money. They've had to spend time and energy it's made my mother cry. It's saddened my family. It's ruined the quality of me and my family's life. I don't know how many more times I have to, explain the same thing over and over to people and just witness throughout the years while I'm complaining to these same participating agencies and entities and municipalities of city and state government while they're changing the employees that are working there literally as I'm complaining to them throughout the years. And it's as if, they're purposely changing the employees to continue to try to cover up the case. Like, for example, just recently when I was speaking with the Internal Affairs and I asked them to reopen the investigation because they said they closed the investigation and they categorized it as unsustainable. And I asked them what that means. And they said that means that they couldn't prove that the officer injured me, and they couldn't prove that the officer didn't injure me. And I said, well, you have the narrative reference photographs that the Internal Affairs detective took. And they said, well, we don't have those photos. I said, well, I'm speaking with the Internal Affairs Department, and the Internal Affairs detective, Eric Rodriguez, not to be mistaken with Ronnie Rodriguez, took pictures of the injuries that Ronnie Rodriguez caused. And she said, if you could obtain those photos, we'll reopen the investigation for you. I said, okay, I'll do that for you. I put in a public records request to the City of Miami Police Department Public Records Unit. They asked me to sign a HIPAA medical release of records form and to get it notarized. I got it notarized, I signed it, I sent it back to them. So I'm hoping, they do what they said they're going to do and not just give me another excuse. But I did notice, though, the major at the Internal Affairs for the City of Miami Police Department now, his name is Antonio Diaz. Same last name as Leslie Diaz, the officer who stuck up for me. And so I'm hoping that makes a difference. I mean, they've got the Internal Affairs detective with the same last name as the officer who attempted to murder me. The Internal Affairs detective's name is Eric Rodriguez. He took the pictures of the injuries that Officer Ronnie Rodriguez caused to my body. And then there's the sergeant. His name is Edwin Gomez. And then there's the PRI officer who stuck up for me. His name is Leslie Diaz. And the major at the Internal Affairs, his name is Antonio Diaz. So I'm hoping that type of acknowledgement is a form of acknowledgement and, consideration for monetary relief without necessarily saying, hey, we're aware that the officer injured Omar, and we're aware that Omar has complained several times throughout the years and has not been able to fully recover and or obtain monetary relief. So the Internal Affairs major has the same last name as the PRI officer who stuck up for him, and the Internal Affairs detective who took pictures of the injuries on Omar's body that the officer caused has the same last name. So I'm hoping, that counts for something. I'm hoping that counts for something. And now, you said they assigned you from Humana as
Yeah, so I'm with the health insurance company. I don't I'm not with I'm not with law enforcement. It sounds like you've got like a legal matter also in your hands. You mentioned finances. So I'm affiliated with Humana, which is your health insurance company. I'm just not, I'm not resourced to provide any support when it comes to legal matters or financial reimbursement.
Yeah, I'm injured due to those legal matters, and those injuries that were caused due to those legal matters are being billed to Humana. Like, for example, when the officer attempted to murder me and brought me to Jackson Memorial Hospital, for example, in Jackson Memorial Hospital, and their doctors and the staff there, they tried to cover up the police brutality case. They sent a bill to Humana, and from what I'm aware of, Humana didn't pay that bill because I explained to them what happened, and they were aware of the irrefutable amount of evidence proving my complaint. And from my understanding, they haven't paid that bill. And, they obviously shouldn't have to, because that would be a waste of policy, and that would be forced fraud upon the court, being that my injuries were caused by government employees, and I have government Medicaid health insurance, so that would be a procurement scam as well.
I'm not sure how that goes, but if you have health coverage and you need health care, I believe that's where Humana would come in. I just don't know the specifics to government entities and scenarios like the one you mentioned.
All right. So you said your name is Roger Diaz?
Yes.
So you have the same last name as the internal affairs major and the PRI officer who stuck up for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that last name is not uncommon in South Florida.
It's not really too common either to have the same last name as the internal affairs detective who took pictures of the injuries that the officer caused, who also has the same last name as the internal affairs detective, and the major of the internal affairs having the same last name as the officer who stood up for me. I don't know how.
Yeah, so I mean, you got a few individuals with the same last name at the police department, right? Is what I gathered.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not related, right?
I don't know. Personally, I haven't asked them that question. So it's really irrelevant to me at the same time. I mean, the evidence speaks for itself. So any unnecessary legwork or thinking I have to do about this situation helps, because just having to continuously think about it and speak about it and all those things just makes me feel sick.
Well, it sounds a little traumatic.
Yeah, it's equivalent to torture.
Let's see. So you are scheduled to follow with your primary care doctor tomorrow. You want me to reach out to you next week?
No, not really.
Okay, you want me to share my phone number with you so you have it? You can call in as needed.
What is it? The number that's on the caller ID?
So the calls are routed through Humana's headquarters. So I think it's a Kentucky number because they record the conversations. But I have a direct number, an 800 number with an extension. You've got my first and last name. You can ask me personally. I can give you my number with my extension. But because they record their conversations, our communications are done over the phone.
Right. So did they...
And that's just the way it's set up.
How else will we communicate? I mean, telepathic telekinesis? It's like...
Oh, I mean, nowadays you got email, texting is pretty popular, but that's not part of the program right now.
Were they able to... Did they mention to you the reports that I made with the Special Investigations Unit, being that you're the new case manager assigned to the case?
So you have different departments within the organization. If you have a special investigation going, they have associates who specialize in that. I'm a nurse with Humana, so I specialize in healthcare processes when it comes to your coverage within healthcare. So because the two kind of are not what's the word I'm looking for? Because the two are two different aspects. I'm guessing they keep them separate. So no, I don't have discussions with the special investigation units on any cases or anything like that. And in this case, I haven't spoken to them in any cases you have open with them.
Are you able to see the status of the most recent grievance that I had to file? Or any of the grievances that I had to file?
So, I mean, I can reach out to, if you talking about member service, yeah, I can reach out to member services and see whether or not you have any grievances on file. But, you know, they would have a team that specializes in the grievance process within Humana, handling that matter.
So
there should be a contact person specific to that grievance.
Just having to repeat this situation over and over it's difficult for me.
Yeah, well, I do agree. It sounds a little traumatic. But, you know, you have support. You have what I'm going to call full coverage when it comes to healthcare. So, you know, that includes primary, specialty, ER, inpatient, behavioral health, therapy, whatever you might be interested in. And then because it's a HMO, it's you know, some of these processes will require medical necessity. So that's why ideally you want to have those conversations with your primary care doctor and kind of take it from there.
I really need a home health aide.
Yes, so you have your appointment with your doctor. I will discuss it. Now, there are some services that aren't part of your benefit when it comes to Medicaid or Humana Healthy Horizons. So if you need like a companion, some homemaker services, the state does have a program they term long-term care. But for that, you would have to follow up with your local Aging and Disability Resource Center. You know, let them know you're interested in applying for long-term care because they're the providers who handle that benefit. I can share that information or phone number if you want.
I really need somebody to help me clean up at the least. I mean, that'll help a lot with the pain.
So for the cleanup, that's not a Medicaid benefit. For the pain, you know, having that conversation with your doctor. When you talk about Humana Healthy Horizons, there's an over-the-counter benefit where you have $25 for some over-the-counter items that don't require prescription. You know, you mentioned pain. I think of, you know, the over-the-counter basics, right? Tylenol, Motrin, ice pack, you know, Bengay, topical numbing creams, lidocaine patches. Now, if it's severe pain, yeah, that's something you want to discuss with your PCP. You know, that's not something he or she's going to address. You know, I'm interested in seeing pain management, which is the specialist. And then you can ask him or her, are you going to refer me? They agree to refer you, great. If they say no, then you want to ask them why. Just to make sure we're on the same page. Because the only way we're going to figure things out is by having these conversations.
Right. Yeah, it's not ideal for me to just be taking over-the-counter pain medications or pain medications in general for an extensive period of time. I mean, that's a recipe for liver surgery, kidney surgery, or whatever organ that those medications damage. Having a home health care aid to just help me accomplish my necessary living necessities. That's the best way to approach a situation involving pain and injury, and it's a natural, healthy way. Instead of me just trying to tough it out and act like I'm not injured, that doesn't help. It makes the injuries worse. It makes the pain last longer. It makes the pain more intense. And just trying to take pills to cover up the pain, that's like a temporary fix.
I agree.
And that's just another doctor's appointment I'm going to have to make, and another bill that's going to be sent to Humana. And it's like if I'm...
Yeah, so I wouldn't worry about a bill. Because like I said, with Medicaid, there are no bills or out-of-pocket expenses. But it is managed care, so most of these processes do have to be medically necessary. That's why I would discuss with my doctor, let them know, if you got any specific interest, I want to go see. So let's say you're having back pain, but you don't want to see the pain specialist because you want to find out what the cause is. I want to go see the back specialist. Then the back specialist can maybe find out what is the cause of that back pain. But, in order to see a specialist, your primary care doctor has to refer you.
Yeah, I'm tired of being in the what do they call it, the loop of health insurance. It's known that cheap health insurance, they purposely do things to keep the patients injured and sick just so they can continue to bill the insurance company and create revenue for the insurance company. It's very unlikely that they actually do things to allow the patient to fully recover, because then they'll be...
Yeah, so I can acknowledge your statement. I just can't comment, but you have the opportunity for a second opinion. You have your doubts. I would entertain that second opinion option.
Yeah, the second opinion is usually looked at like an insult to a doctor that's within a network of doctors that is in that specific demographic area. Like, I would literally have to go to a completely different city or demographic area to not be within that same network of doctors that I need a second opinion because of, and not have to worry about being retaliated against, at a moment's notice, because they're within the same network and they obviously communicate with each other.
Well, I think if they're different at different locations, for them to gather that information would require some legwork. Now, if they're within the same practice, then yeah, that's information they'll have access to. I agree, maybe.
Quality.
But I don't work with those. I don't work with those providers, so I don't know what their processes are. But yeah, based on what you said, I can see where that might be a possibility.
Yeah, I know that from experience, because it's happened reoccurringly from South Florida all the way to North Florida, the capital.
Yeah.
Quality medical care is always helpful. Just being able to afford it is the biggest problem. I don't know a doctor who would turn down, a service of quality medical care for a patient who's paying out of pocket and them not having to wait several days to obtain their money from the insurance company. Doctors live
So I mean, I just don't know, right? I mean, if a doctor agrees to do business with, I guess, what are we gonna call it? An inferior? What would you call it?
Well, you have to look at it from a realistic perspective. Doctors live a very expensive, high-class lifestyle, and there's a lot of female doctors, a lot of male doctors, a lot of female nurses, a lot of male nurses, young, old, different personalities, different opportunities, different, positions and whatnot. So, it's like a class of people. They look at each other a certain way when certain things are done. And when things are done in a way that's not normal to them, they look different at each other, because that's not the norm. That's not, what they're expecting. That's not what they're used to. And it might change the trajectory of, their opportunities. So if it's normal for doctors to look at a Medicaid patient differently from a patient who's paying out of pocket, and the doctors no longer do that, that's going to, in a sense, decrease the value of the doctor's dollar, or decrease the value of that doctor's network of doctors, or decrease the value of that doctor's office, for example.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, so as a professional, we carry ourselves to certain standards, and then these doctors aren't obligated to work with Medicaid. I believe they choose to work with Medicaid, so I just don't know.
It's all.
But yeah, if you're speaking from experience, I'm not going to deny your experience.
It all comes down to money. I mean, there's been numerous.
I think the system is set up that way. Yeah, it is a capitalist system, right, in the States.
There's been numerous occasions where, I'd call to schedule an appointment, for example, with a specialist, and they'd tell me, "Oh, we're booked out for 6 months or a year, but I could put you on a waiting list, and if anybody cancels, I try to get you in here."
It's happened before. I'm not gonna. I've had those experiences.
Yeah, and I say okay, and then I'd call back, and I'd ask them if I pay out of pocket, is there any sooner?
Oh, so you've tested that theory?
Several times, yeah. I'd tell them,
okay,
if I pay out of pocket, is there a sooner day that I can see the specialist? And almost every
and it happens?
Yeah, and almost every single time they say yes.
Wow. I don't. So I acknowledge what you said. I just don't have a comment, but yeah, it sounds a little questionable.
Yeah, most recent.
I'm gonna go with coincidence. Sounds like a coincidental, maybe.
Nah, it happens too often for it to be coincidental.
Happens too often. Yeah.
Like, for example.
Yeah. Well, I'm listening. I just, because I'm, here where it's strictly Medicaid, I just don't. But I do get the, appointments are, a few months out. There is a waiting list. They encourage you to call you every so often, see if are there any cancellations to bump something up. But I have been there.
Yeah, like for example, most recently, I had my gums were bleeding, and it was really bad. And I called every single doctor's office on the list of doctors that Humana provided for me to call to go to for a dentist. They said the only one that was available was all the way in Jacksonville, Florida. So I called them, and they said, yeah, I can go there. I could just walk in. So I called transportation. Transportation picked me up from my house in Tallahassee, Florida. Drove me 2 hours east to Jacksonville, Florida, to the mall there, and the mall was literally about to be shut down because of mold infestation. And when I went there, the mall was still open, but all the shops were closed on the inside. But there was still a dentist office in there, but they had the gate closed, and they had a lens crafters next door. They were open, but they were taking all their stuff out of there to relocate. But they told me that the dentist had an emergency or something, and I had to come back the next day. And I explained to them, I said, well, I called, you guys told me I could just walk in. And they said, yeah, but the dentist had an emergency, and the office manager's not even here today, and this and that. And literally within just those, several minutes of me talking to them, I started feeling lightheaded. I started feeling sick. My head started hurting really bad, and I felt like I was gonna faint. My words started to slur. I was having difficulty thinking, and I had to call the ambulance. And the ambulance took me to the emergency room, and that's when I found out that that mall is scheduled to be shut down because of mold infestation. And literally, they had large tubs, like garbage can size tubs, collecting the mold and water that was dripping from the ceiling onto the floor of the mall. And they had large mops everywhere to soak up the water that fell onto the floor. And the entire place just smelled like just chemicals and mold. It was bad, man. And it made me sick. And then I called.
Oh, I think some of that stuff is toxic, no? Especially that black mold or something like that.
Yeah, there was a lot of black mold in the ceilings, a lot of multicolored mold and rotting mold and all that stuff. It was bad. And then I called the doctors that were on the list that Humana sent me. After I reported that to Humana, I asked them, is there any other doctors I could go to in Jacksonville, being that I'm already there? And they said no. And then so I called several other doctors that were on that list just to tell them what happened and see if I could just go to their office, being that it's an emergency and my gums were bleeding. And they all told me the same thing. Some of them said they don't even accept Medicaid. Some of them said Humana is giving me the wrong information. And some of them were saying I need to call Humana and ask to speak with a supervisor because they shouldn't be sending me 2 hours away to a dentist's office that is infested with mold inside of a mall that's scheduled to be shut down and on the news with news reports saying that it's scheduled to be shut down. And, they said that they're not supposed to do that to patients. So then I called every single dentist office on Google. And a lot of them told me the same thing, that they don't accept Medicaid. And then when I said, I spoke with some of them that they said they do accept Medicaid, but they're scheduled several months out. One of them in particular, I asked if I could just pay out of pocket, and they said, sure, come on in. They said, when are you planning on coming in? I said, well, I could be there in the next 10 minutes. And they said, all right. I went there, paid $1,000 cash, or I think like $1,200 cash, and they fixed my teeth.
That was, I guess that was another situation where you had the same experience, no?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's another situation too with another specialist. For example, the neurologist. They told me the appointments were booked out, and I said, okay, well, if I pay out of pocket, could I go sooner? And they said, yeah. I said, how much is it? They said $1,000. So it's like it's just one of those things. If you pay, they'll get you in there. But if you can't pay, they try to treat you as if you're less than human, just to keep that outlook thriving, because it obviously is generating them more money to keep people sick longer, because the longer somebody's sick, the more symptoms they're going to have, and that means the more times they're going to have to go to the doctor for that reason and for other reasons that began because they had those symptoms for that much longer of a time frame, and something else went wrong in their body because they weren't able to treat those symptoms soon enough. It's just like, for example, if you've got an infection or something, and you're not able to properly obtain proper wound care, that infection is going to get worse. But if you're able to obtain proper wound care, you might not have to worry about that infection getting worse. But if you're not able to obtain proper wound care, you that infection might spread to another part of your body. It might cause other problems. It could cause all different types of problems. If the infection gets in your mouth, for example, if you've got an infection on your arm and you're showering and that infection splashes up and accidentally goes into your mouth and you swallow it accidentally, then you'll have a throat infection. Then you might have an infection, in one of your organs, and it might spread to other places. It might spread to your bloodstream. It causes all different types of problems. So, it's just one of those things that generates more money for a business. Just like a vehicle, for example. You go to the mechanic. The mechanic will tell you, if you have an old car, for example, the mechanic will tell you, okay, your brakes need to be fixed, your rotors need to be fixed, your transmission needs to be fixed. It's going to cost this amount of money to fix this, this, and this. If you only fix this and you come back within, this amount of time to fix the other two things, you won't have to worry about your motor blowing up. It's just one of those things.
Yeah. So I'm interested in sharing my phone number. What do you think?
I'm all right, man. I'm all right. Just, I'm not trying to be rude or anything. I know, people.
Yeah, well, so I'm not calling you to judge. I'm on the outside looking in. I heard what you had to say. I don't want to say I know what you're going through, because that wouldn't be true. But I did listen. I just don't. For the legal stuff, I don't have any, or the law enforcement stuff, I don't have any information. But when it comes to healthcare, you have my support. And the special investigation stuff, you should have a contact person there. Just, for me to mislead you would be a disservice.
Yeah. How long you been working for Humana?
I'm gonna go with 8-9 years.
Oh, wow, that's pretty good. Yeah, man. I'm not trying to say, you don't know how to do your job or anything like that. I understand. I know how it is. My father, he retired from...
You can say it. I'm not, like I said, I'm a professional. I'm supposed to carry myself professionally, good or bad. I do have a supervisor, right? If you got any complaints specific to me, I would encourage you to, run those by my supervisor so that, they do have processes in place where I'm supposed to get better at this if I'm not fulfilling my obligations. And I'm interested in in being the best care manager I can be.
Well, the best thing you could possibly do is acknowledging a problem as soon as possible. You understand? Like, for example, there's people who work for entities and municipalities of city and state government. There's people who work for corporations and companies and jobs in general for 10, 20, 30 years. And, they're expecting a pension. They're depending on the income from their jobs to be able to afford their necessary living necessities, their car payment, their house payment, their expenses for their children and their families and things like that. So a lot of the time, they're dependent upon that income, and they're also aware that there's corruption within their jobs that they're working at, and those companies and those businesses and those entities and municipalities of city and state government, but they don't say anything because they're worried about being retaliated against. They're worried about being retaliated against by being assaulted by someone at their job. They're worried about being retaliated against by being fired by somebody at their job. They're worrying about not being able to afford their expenses and their house payment, their car payment, their children's expenses, and their necessary.
Well, we do receive training where we are required to report certain scenarios.
Yeah.
As a nurse, as a state licensed nurse, I'm required to, report. An example would be abuse or anything like that.
Yeah,
so it's mandatory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and if I don't, then I'm responsible.
Yeah, my situation is all of those things: abuse, medical malpractice, medical negligence, reoccurring violations of 18 United States Chapter SS 1513, reoccurring violations of SS 766.110 and similar statutes, waste of policy, forced fraud upon the courts, a procurement scam.
So for that, I think it sounds like legal counsel might be best. You mentioned, internal affairs. I think in a situation where you've got abuse when it comes to law enforcement, I think the responsible party there is the internal affairs when you file your complaints. Those are entities outside of Humana right now. So I think I know, but I don't. I have an idea, but
it's really
I have an idea that I don't have an idea, right?
That's really straightforward.
Because those are...
It's not really anything you have to be confused to think about. It's all straightforward. Somebody hits you and you get injured, they're responsible. If a government employee hits you and you're injured, they're just as responsible. The only difference is they are sworn in and have an oath to abide by their oath. And hitting somebody and injuring them, they're not allowed to do that to people.
So I think it's like a double whammy, right? Because there's like a violation of the oath and a violation of some statute or law, right?
Yeah, like for example, the violation of the reoccurring violation of 18 United States Chapter SS 1513. That's a statute that states, for example, if a government employee injures someone and then tries to cover it up, and that's a very serious crime. And it also states that if a government employee injures someone and tries to cover it up with another government employee, that's a serious crime as well. And
but I mean, the process is the same, right? You gotta get a prosecutor on board, right, to review, I guess, the evidence and bring charges or something.
right. Yeah, in the United States of America, you have to have something called clear and convincing evidence to be able to prove your complaint beyond a reasonable doubt, to be able to obtain monetary relief.
So I guess it's what is it? Prove your complaint so that there's a high possibility they win the case or something like that.
Yeah, so if you have clear and convincing evidence proving your complaint beyond a reasonable doubt, you are able to obtain.
There's a high probability you'll win that case.
It's automatic. That's the law.
Yeah.
Clear and convincing evidence proves a complaint.
There's nothing outside of that, right?
Right. So all you need is clear and convincing evidence to prove your complaint and obtain monetary relief in any court in the United States of America. And a lot of the time when your opposing counsel is an entity, a municipality, a city and state government, for example, like the City of Miami Attorney's Office, they're representing the City of Miami Police Department, because the City of Miami government is responsible for the City of Miami Police Department, and they're aware that when somebody has clear and convincing evidence proving their complaint, they automatically win. There's no justifying that. There's no way they could justify that. And in my case, I have clear and convincing evidence proving my complaint. That is why I was getting harassed so much after I reported them, because they did everything they possibly could to try to exhaust me of all my resources, to try to scare me out of continuing with the case to obtain monetary relief. They did everything they possibly could. I mean, they unethically hacked my phone. They electronically harassed me. They were aware during, before, and after. Everything.
So you need like a good civil rights attorney?
I mean, to be quite honest with you, I've learned how to do it all myself, because throughout all these years, I haven't been able to find an attorney to help me. So I had to learn how to do it.
Yeah, well, I believe all that is public information, no? Don't they have libraries containing all that stuff? They have a lot of libraries, I believe, no? And like the local city or county governments have law libraries, or am I making that up?
Yeah, it's common for a demographic area to have a law library, but
something like that, right?
Yeah,
because civil rights comes into play, and I think government has to be transparent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when I would go to the law library at the courthouse in Miami, they would call the police on me when I would just ask them a simple question about where a specific book is located, because they were aware that I had filed lawsuits against the police department in the city of Miami. So they did everything they possibly could to
So you were trespassed from a county or city law library?
No, well, they couldn't trespass me from the courthouse, because I didn't.
They would harass you?
Yeah, I didn't do anything but ask them a simple question. But they tried to get me in trouble. They harassed me. They unethically hacked my phone. They were aware of the documents that I was documenting for the case in my phone during, before, and after I documented them. They were aware of all the necessary locations that I had to go to during, before, and after I had to accomplish any of my legal and medical affairs. They were purposely, like I said, unethically hacking my electronic devices. The only places I was able to find to live were all uninhabitable rental properties, and there were people already there who were aware of the fact that I had to file lawsuits against the police department, and they were harassing me in accordance with the reports that I was filing in real time. And they were doing things to purposely make me sick. They were doing things to exhaust me. They were doing things to make me miss my court hearings, which was literally a 30-minute bike ride from Cayocho to downtown Miami. So it's just, when I tell you they did everything they possibly could. Yeah, when I tell you they did everything they possibly
Well, I mean, you went from Miami to Tallahassee. You went from one end of the state to the other almost, no?
Yeah, I had to for my safety. And then when I didn't give up, the coronavirus pandemic happened, and then it made it even more difficult for me to continue to go to court.
I think the pandemic made a lot of things worse.
Yeah, they shut down the courthouse. They shut down the government. It was literally one thing after the next, and it was too much of a coincidence at that point. And it's still happening. Literally, I mean,
but I think right now everything is back up and running at 100%.
No, not really. I mean, I'm witnessing.
No?
I'm witnessing. There's a lot of news reports about investigations being conducted against the Trump administration, against the Biden administration, against the FBI, and several participating agencies that I had to report these recurring violations of 18 United States Chapter, SS 1513, and SS 766.110, and similar statutes too. And
those are what? State, city, local, federal? What are those?
Federal, city, state, and local. And,
okay.
And the news reports that I'm witnessing, they're all in the same fashion in accordance with what I'm reporting. So it's obviously getting the attention of one of the participating agencies, one of the several participating agencies that I reached out to. And from what it looks like is the people that they had in charge to help me with these type of situations and help victims in general with these type of situations, they weren't doing their job properly, obviously. And
but those resources are still available.
I mean, I don't know, to be quite honest with you, how effective they are, other than the fact that there's news reports that I'm witnessing.
Yeah, well, I mean, you said that they weren't, the people there weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, I'm still injured.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
I still haven't been able.
I do hope for the best for you, though. I mean, I just don't. I can't. I don't even know. I don't even know where to begin. You know what I'm saying? It does sound a lot. It does sound like you've been through a lot. Like I said, some of that initial stuff sounded traumatic. But
yeah, it's one thing after the next. I had a situation where I became a victim of an Uber scam right after the police brutality case that happened that I mentioned to you first in Miami. I became a victim of an Uber scam in Miami, and the Uber scam was connected to J.P. Morgan Chase Bank. And J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, they hired a law firm in Brickell, downtown Miami, at the Four Seasons Hotel.
Was there a monetary value there, or in the millions or something like that?
So they hired a law firm named what was it, Jacobs? Something Jacobs. I can't remember. It's so strange. But Homer, Bonner, and Jacobs. It's on the 14th floor. Homer, Bonner, and Jacobs law firm on the 14th floor of the Four Seasons Hotel in downtown Miami. They hired them to settle with me outside of federal court. So we brought the case in front of a federal judge, Chief Justice Michael Moore, and the J.P. Morgan Chase Bank. They agreed to settle with me out of court. So I agreed, and they overnight delivered the settlement documentation for me to sign. And the Honorable Chief Justice Michael Moore said to sign the settlement documentation immediately because we agreed to settle out of court. So we scheduled an appointment, and they sent me the settlement documentation to sign. I received it. I signed it. then we had an appointment, and they were supposed to call me at a specific day and time. They didn't call me at that specific date and time, so I reached out to them. They didn't answer the phone, and I lived maybe a 20-minute bike ride, I would say, from their office. So I went to their office with the documentation that I signed to give it to them personally. And I went upstairs to their office, and they told me that the attorneys weren't there. And I explained to them that we have an appointment that day at a specific day and time, and they didn't call me. And they mailed me FedEx overnight rush delivered to me the settlement documentation that we agreed to settle with out of federal court. And they said, okay, let me call the attorneys. So they called the attorneys. They didn't answer the phone. So they told me to just reschedule the appointment. So I rescheduled the appointment, and then I exited the office, and I was in front of the elevators. As I was waiting for the elevator next to mine opened up, and 2 police officers entered, and they told them that I was trespassing. And as I was walking downstairs with the officers, I was explaining to them the situation and how serious it is, and just giving them detailed information for them to keep an eye out for these type of reoccurring crimes, just so nobody else would have to go through those same situations that I was going through. And I asked the officers for their names and badge numbers. When I asked them for their names and badge numbers, they didn't like that, and they jumped on me, they injured me, they arrested me, and they charged me with trespassing and resisting arrest without violence.
That was another one?
Yeah, they charged me with trespassing and resisting arrest without violence to their person. And they put me on probation.
And no footage, right?
Yeah, I got the footage. I recorded it with my own phone because I had to obtain their names and badge numbers to provide that to the Honorable Chief Justice Michael Moore in federal court, because I had specific directives from federal court to sign the settlement documentation immediately, which I did. And we had an appointment scheduled, and they didn't answer the phone, nor did they call me when they were supposed to call me. So I had to report that to the federal judge. I had to provide the names and badge numbers of the officers who were called and were told that I was trespassing when I was not trespassing. I had a legally binding contract with that law firm, so I had every right to be there. I was there on business, and they told them I was trespassing, and they ended up jumping on me, injuring me, arresting me, trespassing me, and they ended up putting me on probation. And it was just one problem after the next, and
Yeah. In Tallahassee, you're not having any issues up there, though, no?
No, nothing like in Miami, Florida. There was.
How long you been up there?
I've been here since January of 2023. I mean, there's been several similar situations of harassment, like unethical hacking of my phone, people harassing me when I'm out in public or at my house, making comments about things that I'm reporting, things that I'm literally documenting on my phone in real time while I'm documenting them. I'm used to that happening because that happened in South Florida a lot also, but the specific, physical situations of harassment, like people, hiding in bushes and jumping out of the bushes and chasing me down the street, and people, purposely doing things inside where I'm living to make me sick, or making situations almost impossible for me to fulfill, that have to do with legal and medical affairs and things like that. I mean, there's been similar instances of those, but not as intense as it was in South Florida. And that's understandable. I mean, South Florida is a high traffic tourist area, and it's known for a lot of corruption.
A lot of people, yeah.
Tallahassee is the capital of Florida. There's a lot more government entities and municipalities here, so they tend to follow the law a lot more than other areas that's not obviously the capital of Florida.
You want the number to ILS, that provider, just in case they don't call you back?
I have the number.
Okay. And then what about my number? You okay with having my name and calling that member services number in the back of that Humana card?
To be quite honest with you, I don't even want to talk about this anymore. I mean, I explained to you.
Yeah, well, like I said, it does sound traumatic. I would think I know what, you're talking about, but the truth is I don't. But you have support. Like I said, Humana positions itself to support its members. You have that case management number. You have full coverage, like I mentioned earlier. You need my support, feel free to reach out. And then within my resources, I'm an associate here, so I don't have the authority to say, yeah, you can go see the specialist, even though they don't work with Humana Healthy Horizons. But I can tell you, this is the specialist that works with Humana Healthy Horizons. Now, I do have a supervisor, right? You got any concerns? I can always escalate, but as an associate here, I have to adhere to the policy and the process.
Yeah, send me an email. Send me an email with your contact information and the supervisor.
I can send you maybe a letter to the address on file, or I can leave you a voicemail. But because the way it's set up, our conversations or communications are done predominantly over the phone because they record them.
If you're able to send me an email with that information so I don't lose track of it, that'll be helpful.
Excuse me? I can mail it to the address on file.
Sure.
Okay. Do you have any questions for me?
I do. It's just I've been on the phone for an hour and 3 minutes and 27 seconds. It's just I don't feel good right now.
Okay. So you'll call me if you need anything?
Sure.
All right. Well, I appreciate you taking my call. I'm hoping for the best for you. Just remember to schedule and keep those follow-up appointments. Stick to those recommendations. You need something from me, please call. And I usually say if you're having an emergency or crisis, down 911. But with what you mentioned earlier, I don't want to upset anything, or I don't want to upset you. But you do have my support, sir. If you need me, please call me. Okay?
If you get an opportunity to reach out, being that you're the case manager that they assigned, reach out to the Special Investigations Unit at Humana and just, express your concern, explain to them that, you had a detailed conversation with the patient, mention to them. They're probably already aware that, you're the case manager that's assigned to the case now. And you're concerned and you'd like to be familiarized with the complaints that I made to them and the grievances that I put in, and you'll see the extent of what they put me through, because I reported it as much as possible.
Well, I heard what you had to say. It sounds like a lot. Like I said, I'm on the outside looking in, so I have no idea.
Yeah, that's not even 50% of the amount of complaints that I had to file because of that particular situation happening. When I say they harassed me, they did everything they possibly could to make it difficult for me to obtain monetary relief, just so the government employees who are responsible for causing the injuries to my upper and lower extremities don't get in trouble. They did everything they possibly could to not get in trouble and cover up the case, which is a violation.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping the best for you, and I'm hoping your hands pan out and stuff like that. But for the pain and the home health aid thing, just remember to have that conversation with your doctor tomorrow.
Yeah,
you do have that appointment tomorrow, okay?
Yep. All right.
Do you have any questions for me?
I do. I really need to get off the phone right now. I need to lay down.
Okay. Alrighty, sir. If you need anything from me, please call. Just remember to schedule and keep those follow-up appointments to do those recommendations. And all the best to you, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Time now is 4:57 p.m. Today is Thursday, March 21st, 2024. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.